Welcome to American Democracy Forum, powered by the Fulcrum and Citizen Connect. I'm Hugo Balta, Director of Solutions Journalism and Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion with the Fulcrum. A daily cross-partisan news publication, the Fulcrum engages citizens in involving government to better meet the needs of all people. To that end, we strive to share many perspectives to widen our readers' viewpoints. For this episode, I'm joined by Darrious Hilmon, the Executive Director of Chicago Access Network Television, better known as CAN TV. Darrious provides global oversight of the five-station television network, serving as the lead champion for digital literacy, access and equity, and the active engagement and partnership of community partners and other key stakeholders needed to ensure that community access remains relevant to viewers, producers, and guests. Darrious and I have known each other for some time. In my role as publisher of Illinois Latino News, we have collaborated in the production of programs including Chicago Politics, Presente, Sazón de Illinois, and Three Questions With. It is my pleasure to welcome Darrious to the program.
Hugo Balta, how are you, my friend? What a great introduction. That's nice. It's great to be here. It's always good to see you, sir.
So let's start with CAN TV. Let's start the conversation there. Tell us about the network and the work that you lead.
Wow. Third largest city in the country, Chicago, CAN TV. Most would consider us PEG, Public Education Government. As you know, we like to think of ourselves similar mission to when we started, but much more engaged and active. So we think community television, and we invite our viewers, our growing number of viewers, to experience the power of community television. And it's interesting, there's always a silver lining to be found. And I was just saying this yesterday as we were taping a Chicago newsroom episode and talking to local guests, talking about 2024. The power and the importance, the critical importance of hyper local um, television that is centered on community voice, news and information, because what's coming out of DC is going to impact everyone, but it's going to impact each community in similar and different ways. So right now, really leaning into our calling, our mission, and that is to be the platform for the community, high quality. Our community deserves that, but really where folks and people who you haven't met yet, or friends being made who know the city, who can talk about what's going on in the city and surrounding areas, and can really be your neighbor where you see them in the supermarket and go, I heard what you said yesterday. I agree with that. I disagree with that. And we really do lean all of our work on the foundation of until the lion tells his or her story, the hunter will always be the hero. So that's what CAN TV is. It's the quality. You know this. We work on this. The quality you'd expect from a commercial station in the third largest market, but conversations that are more than 2 second sound bites, solution driven journalism, and really having conversations that commercial television either can or won't have.
Yeah, and I agree. I think one of the things that I enjoy about working with you and others at CAN TV is we get an opportunity to really unpack not only different issues, but also the people, the thought leaders, the people that are really on the front lines of really solving for a lot of the challenges that communities face, especially communities of color that too often are absent from the narrative of some of the stories that we see in mainstream media. And when we do see them, they're very one-dimensional narratives, very short sound bites or quotes, as opposed to really having conversations where we're not only being informed about a particular subject, but also educated, and in doing so, and being empowered to act, right? To make better decisions. I want to lean in a little bit on what I mentioned previously, programs like Chicago Politics, a program that was developed ahead of the Democratic National Convention in Chicago last summer, and also the presidential election. Tell us about the importance of CAN TV's programming, as I mentioned, informing, educating, and empowering the public on democracy and civic engagement, because it's so important to step away from the sidelines and get in the game, so to speak, especially when we're talking about elections and making decisions about electing officials that are really going to represent us and do the work of improving many of the challenges that our communities face.
It's incredibly important. Great question. It's incredibly important, and how we lean into it. And I'll answer that by saying what our viewers say back to us. Um, the day after the election, you and Andy Zopp, a notable person here in the city, former deputy mayor, ran for Senate, top executive, who hosts Chicago Newsroom and co-hosted the live specials with you. We came on the air the night after the election, and we had leaders together from all walks of life here in Chicago, and it felt communal. And our audience responded to that in numbers that a lot of folks are very surprised that community television gets. But we sat there, and there was a group of Black women with a 15-minute segment, really unpacking what that felt like for all of us, but for that group specifically, um, having the Speaker of the House on, having commentary, but having folks, we sit together and go, what does this mean? Feel what you feel, agree to disagree, and what do we do from here? And I think that's the important piece that we do that perhaps others don't. Everything we do is, but what do we do with this information? It's not to get sound bites. It's not to um, be disagreeable just for viewership. Viewership matters to us because we want to be able to count our reach, but we're not advertiser driven. So it's not 2 minute sound bites. We can't spend 20 minutes with an incredible group of Black women. You can spend 20 minutes having a conversation with the chief of staff to the mayor. What does all this mean? And he can spend time with the Speaker of the House having a conversation that he wouldn't have on any of the commercial stations. And then when it's over, we can go, we're coming back to this in a week because news sometimes is very cotton candy. We give you, it leads at least, and then we move on. We tend to really believe in continuing these conversations. I think we've had conversations um, on the migrant issues here in Chicago and welcoming our new neighbors in a way that other stations have not, because we have the time, the luxury, but also the intention of saying, what does this mean after the headline? What are we going to do a year from now? What are we going to do a week from now? And I think that is the power of what we do. But we don't want to put something on that we don't go, what are the next steps? What do we do with this? And to make it part of what happens right now, and we've been having these conversations, this country by design, we're watching it happen with impunity, wants you to feel unwelcome, wants you to feel that nothing you say or do is going to matter and just be quiet. Just let those in power, the ruling class, do what they do. We don't believe that. We do believe, and we talk about this from judges to alder people to the mayor on up. You have the power, and all politics really is ultimately local. So when we're looking at how we got to where we are now, we're making room for conversations of how do we get here? What automatic vote didn't happen? What judge who once they get that job is there for a lifetime should we have known more about? And really making sure that our audience, our viewers, our shared community citizens, not only do we have a shared accountability, but you have the absolute right to ask questions to get into the process. There really is no inappropriate question. That is what this should be designed to do. The politicians, the system should be working for the greater good of you, the community. And we remind folks that all the time because there's so many samples and examples coming saying, mind your business, stay out of this isn't about you. Feel so hopeless that you just work your hands. And we consistently go, no, 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 no. All politics is local. You have a right. It's not a gift. You have a right to have a say in what happens to the community where you're paying taxes, where you are building lives for you and your family. And I think that's part of what we really lean into, and you help us do.
Yes, CAN TV is such a great platform that provides greater visibility and voice to all communities in the Chicagoland area, and especially, again, as we've mentioned, those voices that too often are muted because they're not silent. They are speaking out, but they seem to be muted in mass media. And another thing that you've mentioned that really resonates with me, and you mentioned just to have a table full of African American thought leaders, women thought leaders, and it's this top-down approach, right? Has this. I'm sorry, mainstream media has a top-down approach. Canon TV has a bottom-up approach, and what I mean by that is too often mainstream media is criticized for being elitist and having the journalists and more than anything the C-suite managers that are running mainstream media and dictating what news is or what they project, presume news is for the populace.
What they've decided in their echo chambers.
Exactly. And so, to have a platform where the community tells us what is most important and what is relevant, and that has an influence in the programming and in the content and the conversations, I think is so powerful.
And if I can add one more thing in there real quick, it also, and it's gratifying. I've been in the road just under 3 years. It is gratifying to watch, and you've been a part of this, the things we put together, adding streaming, really being consistent about our original programming, ensuring that we are creating that pathway and giving the platform, not telling your story, but giving you the platform to tell it. We last year, this little community television network, had 34.4 million viewers for the year, which was our best year ever. We are right now where most media organizations, flat is the new high and everything is going lower. We are going to be about 12 million higher than that number this year. And it is because, and what I'm hearing now, in addition to that, is anecdotal, people trust that because we are a nonprofit. So I think of things like an intervention in social work. You don't start an intervention or program that you're not going to keep because our communities are distrustful for good reason. So the consistency of what we have been doing and what we have been doing with the community, it's so gratifying to watch it pay off. It is bittersweet that we are sort of, I believe, hitting our groove at a time where the country is about to experience 4 years like none it's ever had before. And again, I think Chicago is going to have a bullseye on it because of the administration and the level of discord that is already taking place before even the inauguration. So the silver lining is that we are well suited, working with our partners, working with the new funding partners coming to us to be able to make sure that we remain a beacon and that we continue to give folks the platform to fight the good fight, but to have the important conversations, and more than anything, to continue to hold on to our hope that we have the power to make change.
Yeah, and I think the CAN TV's mission has never been more important than it is now, with the return of Trump to the White House, and drawing from uh, the first 4 years, and even just the type of rhetoric that we've heard during the campaign and the election. So this platform, this network is necessary for the community, for the city of Chicago. So I'm, again, very grateful to be a part of it and collaborate in lifting up those voices and visibility. Um, let's talk about you. You're a graduate of the University of Michigan. You're an author and have worked in theater, just to name a few of your accomplishments and experiences. Tell us about yourself and where were you born? Where did you grow up? Who and what influenced and inspired the work that you do?
I am 56. I'm 56 years old. I was born on the east side of Detroit. I can tell you the time and the day, July 31st, 1968 at 4:20 p.m. in the afternoon at Memorial Hospital, which is no longer there. That's probably for the best. Graduated high school a year early because I made a strategic decision in the ninth grade that when my older siblings, who were much more gregarious, who who understood the systems. They when there was a fight, they would have one fight a year, and that would tell everyone they're not the ones to mess with. I wasn't that guy. I knew that. So I made sure that when my late brother graduated, I walked across the stage with him. So I graduated high school in 3 years. University of Michigan. was the only university that I applied to that didn't accept me early, which already tells you about my personality. I went, oh, well, then I want you most. Oh, so they didn't offer me a full ride. The only school that did not offer me a full ride. Um, and I remember calling consistently, going, well, when are you going to make the decision? And their initial response was, well, we're just afraid that with your age, you're not ready, you're not socialized. I was like, that feels like hope for something else. So I'm going to call you every day. So the place that I called all the time was the admissions office. My first work study job freshman year was the admissions office because they already knew me. So that was my undergraduate experience. I thought I would go into television. Um, did a internship at public television in Detroit, WTBS, Channel 56, loved it, on a show called Detroit's Black Journal, then it became America's Black Journal. Went to college, got my degree, started working in communication and realized, whoa, one, it's low paying on the front end, on the pretty part of this camera where you're seeing, and my gosh, there's really no space. I felt voiceless in newsrooms, um, and I just did not. There was something in me going. There was not enough here for me. So I moved ultimately, long story, from advertising into nonprofit, and I realized that nonprofit was where my heart was because no matter what I'm being paid, I knew early on if I don't believe in it, I'll self-sabotage. Um, unless it's open. Now, let me be clear. I tell people this time. Oprah Winfrey money, I can be bought. Anything less than that, it's got to mean something. It's got to matter. So I ultimately, through nonprofits, never left. Came here to Chicago at the height of the housing crisis in 2009 when we thought General Motors in Detroit was going under. I moved here to Chicago to become the vice president of corporate and foundation for Girl Scouts of Greater Chicago. They had merged 7 councils together into the largest in the country and was working to professionalize their operation. So I came here, um, a city that I was warned can be insular and transactional. And those things are true, but it is also an incredibly familial city like Detroit. It's a big old Midwestern town. So in those things, if people have been welcoming, I have built relationships that continue on to this day. Andy Zopp, who's on our air, your colleague, was one of my bosses. And I can call her and say, hey, we're doing this at Can TV. Can you be a part of this? And she says, like you did, yes, absolutely. So my sensibilities even before now is that I want to work with people who want to make a difference. I'm this little black gay kid from the east side of Detroit, first in my family to go to college. My sister was the second. So I got a degree in communications from the University of Michigan. She got a mechanical engineering degree from the University of Michigan. So I went, that's good. And I was able to support her. She had one other person that I didn't have to go, what does that mean? Where's the freeze building? What are we doing? And that for me was so one of the more gratifying things in my life that I was able to share that experience with my younger sister. So fast forward to 2000, 2022. I'm saying my dream of television is behind me. It was never, that I've done communication. It's wonderful. Then this opportunity for Can TV comes along and I turn it down the first time it comes to me. 6 months later, it comes back the day before Thanksgiving of 2021, I think that was. And I said, I'm ready to have the conversation. By April of 2022, I joined the organization and I use it as an example for people now. Be very careful or stress test because I was at Chicago State Foundation. I was the executive director of the foundation and helped to relaunch the foundation after it had been closed for some years. Loved the work, was gratifying to save my life during the pandemic, to watch, as I call them, our pandemic first years graduate this past year and be at their graduation, rooting them on, having them on our air, was gratifying. So I didn't want to leave it. I was happy and I felt it was saving my life. And I almost said no. And every time I think about, even with the challenges of transition, every time I think about almost saying no to this job that is the job of my lifetime, and I've been very fortunate, I shudder a bit and go, that's why I tell folks, young folks especially, don't catch yourself. Are you getting too comfortable? Take the risk. Sometimes risks don't work out, but you learn something incredible. But when you take a risk like this and it works out in this way, I cannot imagine. I mean this. I cannot imagine what I do next. Um, and usually I'm sort of they bring me in for turnaround. I'm sort of a 2 years and out guy. So as I'm heading into 3 years and still thinking about the future here, for me, that is just telling. And you know this transition, we've had to transition this organization from one that started in '83 that was fully funded by franchise fees. They had a way of doing things and really to make sure our mission remained honored, but we had to change our business model for the 21st century. And to say right now, there are days I stand in our studio during you and Andy's shows are a lot of the times where I go, what a privilege that I get to be a part of this, to hear these conversations, to help facilitate this happening, to see the changes of our work, to have people watching and commenting and sharing and creating our virtual town hall where folks can have conversation. I cannot every time I think about it, I cannot imagine. It's the best of both worlds for me. It's communication that I love. I already understood the power of storytelling, the power of being able to see yourself, to watch you on, on Chicago politics or Three Questions with, to watch you and Andy walk the community through what you and Andy did the night after the election. Our community came together. We had what for that election special, between your two specials, over 100,000 viewers for our community access. But the community, you could feel it even in our studio as the guests were coming in. We created a place where we could come together and go, okay, how do we feel? That wasn't just all over the place, that was facilitated, but you and Andy, how you all guided not only our network, but our city through that night. That's when I get goosebumps and go, there's no place I'd rather be, even especially in difficult times.
Wow. As you said, it is a privilege to have the opportunity to do the work that we do, to collaborate. Um, I think it's so important as we've spent this time talking about providing those platforms and that type of focus. And I think what great advice, right? I think myself included, it's important to always have an open mind and an open heart, I think, because you can't forecast what's coming around the corner, but you have to be ready for it. Those are opportunities that come, and when they come, and they often come unexpectedly, the best that you could do is be prepared for it, both professionally and personally. And what a wealth and thank you for being so candid and sharing your lived and professional experience that have culminated to where you are right now. And it is setting you up for what comes next, whatever that next is, which I'm sure is going to be very exciting and continue to nurture and invest in our communities. You're one of my heroes, Mr. Darrious.
Right back at you. Listen. You know how I feel about you, but I remember when you joined us, and we've taken each of these steps. You brought a gravitas, a leadership. I think the first few times you were on air, we began your introduction with legendary journalists. So to have folks like you and Andy Zop and now Robin Robinson, formerly of Fox 32, their lead anchor there, to have you all be a part of this, it elevates the work, but it also models for our community producers, and it adds this sense of import to the work, that it matters that a Hugo Boss, that an Andy's out, that a Robin Robinson will come in these studios with all of us and have these conversations. That is when media works best, when the neighbor and the two-time, president of the National Association of Hispanic Journalists, a former news director, when we can all get together and you do this. The folks you have conversation with, it's not who your one-time guest. This is what we do. This is when it works best, when the diversity of that skill set and that talent all comes together. And you're not gatekeeping going. If you're not a Hugo Boss, you can't be on the air. No, Hugo Boss and makes this.
Darrious Hilmon, Executive Director of Chicago Access Network Television, CAN TV. Thank you for your time and insights.
Always a pleasure, my friend. Thank you.
And thank you all for spending this time with us. Conversations and collaboration nurture a well informed citizenry.